Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima tu'allimuna wazidna bifadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Okay. Ya Rabbi, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Babu Fadl al-Jihadi, the superiority of jihad or the merit of jihad. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا أبو الزناد عن الأعرج عن أبي هريرة عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال مثل المجاهد في سبيل الله كمثل الصائم القانت الذي لا يفتر من صيام ولا صلاة حتى يرجع. Malik informed us from Abu Zinad from Al-A'raj from Abu Hurairah, super Sahih hadith, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, the likeness of someone who wages jihad in the way of Allah is like likeness of someone diligently fighting who slackens neither for fasting from fasting nor prayer until he returns. Like you're doing non-stop ibadah. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا أبو الزناد عن الأعرج عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والذي نفسي بيده لوددت أن أقاتل في سبيل الله فأقتل ثم أحيي ثم أقتل ثم أقتل ثم أحيي ثم أحيا فأقتل فكان أبو هريرة يقول ثلاثا أشهد لله. Right. So Imam Malik from Abu Zinad from an A'raj from Abu Hurairah, the Messenger of Allah said, by him in whose hand is my soul, I wish that I could fight in the way of Allah and then be killed, and then be brought to life and killed, and then brought to life and killed. Abu Hurairah used to say this 3 times, I swear by Allah. And so we should, number one, we should always ask for Shahada. We should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all martyrdom. And number two, we should all be living like that. Right? So this is a question, a very difficult question for us to ask ourselves, is the people who are in Gaza, what would they expect us to do? What would they want us to be doing? Like not sleep? Not go to work? No, they want us to go to work, but with what attitude? Right? What kind of attitude would they expect from us, or what kind of thing? Right? Is that all of us have our own jihad. Right? All of us have our own jihad. All of us have certain things that we have to do. And we should live life like that. So yes, there's time for family, there's time for sleep, there's time for rest, there's time for relaxation if needed, right? But our life should not be comfortable, right? When we feel like our life is or has excess things in it, it should be that we're trying our best, right? And we know specifically that the Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that in the case of jihad, there should always be somebody doing talab al-ilm. So we should treat our talab al-ilm as jihad. Okay, I have to work 9 to 5, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then we have to do our basic ibadah, do some Quran, etc. But we should do talab al-ilm as jihad, right? Otherwise, the people in Gaza saying, well, we were being bombed. What was happening to you? Why didn't you do talab al-ilm? Right? It's important to understand. باب ما يكون من الموت شهادة. So dying as a martyr. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا عبد الله بن عبد الله بن جابر بن عتيك عن عتيك بن الحارث بن عتيك وهو جد عبد الله بن عبد الله بن جابر، أي أخبره أن جابر بن عتيك أخبره أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم جاء يعود عبد الله بن ثابت فوجده قد غلب فصاح به فلم يجبه فاسترجع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال غلبنا عليك يا أبا الربيع فصاح النسوة وبكينا فجعل ابن عتيك يسكتهن فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم دعهن فإذا وجب فلا تبكين باكية قالوا وما الوجوب يا رسول الله قال إذا مات قالت ابنته والله إني كنت لأرجو أن تكون شهيدا فإنك قد كنت قضيت جهازك قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى قد أوقع أجره على قدر نيته وما تعدون الشهادة قالوا القتل في سبيل الله قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الشهادة 7 سوى القتل في سبيل الله المطعون شهيد والغريق شهيد وصاحب ذات الجنب شهيد وصاحب الحريق شهيد والذي يموت تحت الهدم شهيد والمرأة تموت بجمع شهيد والمبطون شهيد. Dimensions with the chain transmission. That one of the Sahaba was passing away and he called out to him, but he did not respond. And so the Messenger of Allah said, we belong to Allah and we return to Him. We have lost you, Abu Rabi'. And the women cried out and wept. Ibn Atiq began silencing them. So the Messenger of Allah said, leave them. Then when it is settled, let not a woman weep. They said, what is settlement? What does that mean? What does it mean that it's over? He said, when he dies. His daughter said, by Allah, I had expected you, to her father, to be a shaheed, for you had finished preparing your outfit, getting jahazaka, you're ready for war, you got ready for war, your horse, etc., etc. The Messenger of Allah said, oh Allah, Allah exalted as He has rewarded him in the extent of his intention. Right? That's what I'm talking about, how we live life and what our intention is and how we do things. And what do you do? And how do you consider shahada? What is martyrdom in your eyes? They said, well, being killed in the way of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said there are 7 kinds of martyrdom apart from being killed in the way of Allah. Someone who dies of plague is a martyr. The drowned is a martyr. Someone who dies of pleurisy is a martyr. Someone who dies in a fire is a martyr. Someone who dies in a collapsed building is a martyr. A woman dies in childbirth is a martyr. And someone who dies of stomach disease is a martyr. أخبرنا, and so the point is we live our lives, that is that we are honestly trying to fulfill our personal and communal obligations and doing the best possible thing in every given time as opposed to just hanging out and doing nothing. May Allah forgive us. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا سمي عن أبي صالح عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال بينما رجل يمشي وجد غصن شوك في الطريق فأخره فشكر الله له فغفر له وقال الشهداء 5 المبطون شهيد والمطعون شهيد والغريق وصاحب الهدم والشهيد في سبيل الله قال ولو يعلم الناس ما في النداء والصف الأول ثم لم يجدوا إلا أن يستهموا عليه لاستهموا لو يعلمون ما في التهجير لاستبقوا إليه ولو يعلمون ما في العتمة والصبح لأتوهما ولو حبوا. Malik informed us saying Sumayn narrated to us from Abu Salih from Abu Hurairah, so Sahih Hadith, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, a man was walking and he found a thorny branch on the road. He pulled it to the side and Allah appreciated that and forgave him, right? Because of a small little thing, just making the place easier to walk on. And he said, 5 martyrs are 5. Someone who dies of an internal disease is a martyr. Someone who dies of the plague is a martyr. Somebody drowned is a martyr. Someone who in a collapsed building is a martyr. The martyr in the way of Allah. Then he said, were the people aware of the value of calling the adhan and the first row? They would draw lots for it. If they knew how good it was to be the person who calls the adhan, or how good it was to be in the front row, they would not give it up. Right, and it's not sunnah to give up things like that. You prefer other people to yourself in the dunya, not in the akhirah. You don't do that. So who's going to stand in the front row? You don't give. It's makruh in the Shafi school to do that, to give up your place in the front row, unless, for example, it's to your father or to a sheikh or something like that. But you don't give it to your friend. You don't do that. Right? There's a chance to call the adhan, call the adhan. Right? Unless someone else has a better voice or whatever it is. If they were aware of the value of going early to the prayer, they would compete for it. If they were aware of the value of Isha and the dawn prayer, they would get there, even if it meant crawling there on their side on their hands and knees. Right? So we should always go to the prayer in the masjid unless Allah doesn't want us to go to the prayer in the masjid. Right? You really need to sleep. Adib, for example, he's been up all night with his baby and he's not going to be able to work today. Go to sleep. Don't go to the masjid. Right? Muzaffar has to go to work. Oh, should I go to work or should I go to the masjid? Well, you're obliged to go to work. You have a contract to be there a certain time, right? But you should say, yeah, Allah, I only didn't go to the masjid because you didn't want me to go to the masjid, as opposed to, oh, it's okay, I don't want to do it. That's not deen. Deen is, yeah, Allah, I didn't go to the masjid because you didn't want me to go to the masjid, right? For example, here, there's Isha is in 5 minutes. I'm not going to go to the masjid because I can't teach this class otherwise, right? Allahu A'lam, may Allah forgive me if it's a wrong estimation, but I believe Allah wants me to be here and doesn't want me to be there. Right?
What, what about Hanbalis? They have the Jama'ah as fard, right?
Yeah, and so I'm not sure, is it in the masjid or is it the fard in general, the Jama'ah in general? Like if they prayed at home, does that count? I
Okay.
think that's enough. So what I remember from the Hanbali school is that you are obliged to go to the Jama'ah, even if you're sick, if you can be carried. But does that mean that, for example, assuming that there was no Jama'ah at home, so they said basically you're at home, you live by yourself, and there's nobody to come pray with you. I don't know the details on Hanbali school exactly, right? But again, it should be the same for everybody. All of us, we should treat praying in the masjid as a fard and only leave it for a greater fard, right? It's Allah when Allah doesn't want you to be there, like you're supposed to be doing something else. Allah wants you to be somewhere else, right? Like similarly, you should only join prayers when Allah wants you to join prayers, not because you can, right? It's like, no, this is what Allah wants. I know this, I know this is what Allah wants me to do here. Okay, funerals, it says, باب المرأة تغسل زوجها. A woman's washing her husband's corpse. أخبرنا مالك بن أنس أخبرنا عبد الله بن أبي بكر أن أسماء بنت عميس امرأة أبي بكر الصديق رضي الله عنها غسلت أبا بكر حين توفي فخرجت فسألت من حضرها من المهاجرين فقالت إني صائمة وإن هذا يوم شديد البرد فهل علي من غسل؟ قالوا لا. Um, So Malik ibn Anas said that Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr informed us that Asma bint Umays, the wife of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, so this is the former wife of Sayyidina Ja'far, who then married Sayyidina Abu Bakr and then married Sayyidina Ali, washed Abu Bakr when he died. Then she came out and asked those of the emigrants, the Ansar, who were present, I am fasting, and I feel cold, and it is an intensely cold day, right? So I feel even more cold. Must I make ghusl because I washed somebody? The answer is no. اوكي قال محمد وبهذا نأخذ لا بأس أن تغسل المرأة زوجها إذا توفي ولا غسل على من غسل الميت ولا وضوء إلا أن يصيبه شيء من ذلك الماء فيغسله. Right. So Muhammad says we adhere to this. There is no harm in a woman's washing her husband's body. There is no ghusl incumbent on whomever washes the dead. No wudu, so, unless one of them is touched by filth, in which case you wash off the filth. It's an issue of najasa, that's all. Right. So in the Shafi school, we say it is if you touch the corpse, it is sunnah to make ghusl. باب ما يكفن به المرأة الميت. I believe I answered this question recently, didn't I? About Uh, mm, not also recently. Oh yeah, here it is. A woman can wash her husband. As for a man washing his wife, it is an issue of debate among the scholars, but even those who say that he can prefer that women do it instead. There we go. Answered that on that general Islam QA recently. Okay. He says, Babu ma yukaffan bihi al-mayyitu, what the dead should be shrouded with. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا ابن شهاب الزهري عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن عن عبد الله بن عمرو بن العاص أنه قال الميت يقمص ويؤزر ويلف بالثوب الثالث فإن لم يكن إلا ثوب واحد كفن فيه. So Malik informed us from Ibn Shihab, from Humayd ibn Abdul Rahman, from Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, Faqih. He said the deceased should be clothed in a shirt and an izar, a large cloth wrapped around the lower half of the body, and wrapped in a third garment. If only one garment can be found, he should be wrapped in that. So the point is you have to cover the awrah. قال محمد وبهذا نأخذ الإزار يجعل لفافة مثل الثوب الآخر أحب إلينا من أن يؤزر ولا يعجبنا أن ينقص الميت عن في كفنه من ثوبين إلا من ضرورة وهو قول أبي حنيفة. So Imam Muhammad said we adhere to this. In addition, we prefer the izar being used as a wrapping, like the other piece of fabric, rather than it being worn in the usual way. We dislike the deceased being shrouded in less than two garments because one garment can't cover his whole body, right? Unless it's necessary. So Allah Alam is
So
that go ahead.
Shafi'is also have three.
Yeah, this is Sunnah, yeah.
Okay.
But you know, just anything that covers the aura is fine, sufficient.
Okay.
That is the verdict, and in reality, there's a subtle difference between covering the aura and covering more than that. It's not quite the same thing. One is a different type, one obligation in terms of Allah, and the other one's for that person, but we won't talk about that. That is the verdict of Imam Hanifa, rahimahullah. باب المشي بالجنائز ومشي معها, walking with the funeral processions and accompanying them. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا نافع أن أبا هريرة قال أسرعوا بجنائزكم فإنما هو خير تقدمونه أو شر تلقونه عن رقابكم. Imam Malik informed us in Nafi, he said that Abu Hurairah said, move your funeral processions on swiftly, don't delay them. So I remember, rahimahullah, my father who passed away almost a year ago, uh, it was a Thursday morning here, so Thursday night there in Jordan. They buried him. They didn't buried him straight after Jum'ah. So I got there well after Jum'ah on a Friday night basically. So like I was like, my brother told me, oh, Woody buried. He's like, Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that you Woody buried my dad. But I wanted to see him. He's like, yeah, but it's like he has better places to be, right? Um, so it's like, you care about you. If you have Iman, it's not like, oh, I wanted to see. It's like you have Iman, you know where he's going. He's going to the grave, which is inshallah, la nuzaki Allah ahadan, inshallah, it's a good place, right? For him, inshallah ta'ala. Where said, move your funeral processions on swiftly, for if it is either a good thing you are sending forward or an evil thing you are removing from your shoulders. قال محمد هذا نأخذ السرعة بها أحب إلينا من الإبطاء وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. Right, we adhere being prompt to completion is to we prefer prompt completion to tardiness and delay. This is the verdict of Imam Abu Hanifa. May Allah have mercy on him. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا الزهري قال كان. So this is a mursal, right? There's a gap here. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمشي أمام الجنازة والخلفاء هلم جرا وابن عمر, right? So he said that the Prophet ﷺ used to walk in front of the grave, the procession, and so would the khulafa halumma jarra thereafter. وابن عمر, and so did Ibn Umar. أخبرنا مالك حدثنا محمد بن المنكدر عن ربيعة بن عبد الله بن هدير أنه رأى ابن الخطاب يقدم الناس أمام جنازة زينب بنت جحش. So Imam Malik informed us from Muhammad ibn Munkadir, narrated from us from Rabi'a ibn Abdullah ibn Hudayr. This is Hudayr, not Hudayr. He's got a dot here for Hudayr. But it's a normal H, right? It's a normal dal. It's not a dad and it's not a ha. It's just Hudayr. Normal H, normal D. That he saw Umar ibn Khattab leading the people in front of a funeral procession of Zainab bint Jahsh. قال محمد المشي أمامها حسن والمشي خلفها أفضل وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. You can do it. It's all halal. So the Prophet ﷺ is demonstrating that it is halal. You do not have to walk behind it, but it's better to walk behind it. باب الميت لا يتبع بنار بعد موته أو بمجمرة في جنازته. Right? So there's no rituals here. Right? You don't have a fire as a ritual, or you have a here mijmara, brazier is something burning things. You don't have these rituals. You don't do that. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا سعيد بن أبي سعيد المقبوري أن أبا هريرة نهى أن يتبع بنار بعد موته أو بمجمرة في جنازته. Right. Malik informed us from Sa'id ibn Abi Sa'id al-Maqburi, informed us from Abu Huraira said, when I die, don't follow me with fire. It's not as a procession, as a kind of way of respecting him. Don't do that. These are rituals that we don't do. There's no rituals that are done here. We don't do that. And or mijmara. This is a thing for burning incense and things like that. قال محمد بهذا نأخذ وهو قول أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. Same thing there. باب القيام للجنازة, standing for a funeral procession. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا يحيى بن سعيد الأنصاري عن واقد بن سعد بن معاذ الأنصاري عن نافع بن جبير بن مطعم عن معوذ بن حكم عن علي بن أبي طالب عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يقوم في الجنازة ثم يجلس بعده. Standing out of respect for a funeral procession. Malik informed us that Yahya ibn Sa'id informed us that Waqid ibn Sa'ad ibn Muawwidh ibn Mu'adh al-Ansari narrated from Nafi' ibn Jubair from Muawwidh ibn Hakam ibn al-Hakam from Ali ibn Abi Talib that the Messenger of Allah SAW used to stand for funeral processions, then he used to remain seated. Right? Or so i.e. he previously used to stand for them and then he started to no longer do that. Right? So it's either كان يقوم في الجنائز ثم بعد ذلك كان لم يقم في الجنازة بل يجلس بعده, right? Or did he used to stand then sit down, right? So it's not, the language isn't clear. So here Muhammad says we adhere to this. We do not believe in standing for funeral processions. We don't do it. This is a thing practiced then abandoned. That is the verdict of Imam Hanifa rahimahullah, right? So we see a lot of that with the Hanafis and the Malikis. The hadith is there, but it's not the amal, because their madhabs are based majority on amal, right? So they say, oh yes, that was there, but it was abandoned thereafter, either with clear evidence or with less clear evidence. Whereas for the Shafis, they try and join the hadith together, right? So I believe we in the Shafi school we say that somewhere. Let's double check if I remember correctly. We do that. Yeah, I can't see it here. Doesn't have to be there, but okay, I cannot find it there. What I remember is we do it in the Shafi school. I'm just trying to double check. Yeah, then Shafi school, we walk ahead of the Imam, ahead of the thing. Um, it doesn't mention it here either. I'm looking, that was a Muqaddara Hadramiya. Second. So here in Asnan al-Matalib by Zakaria Ansari, which is a commentary on the Mukhtasar uh, Rawd al-Talibin by Imam Nawawi, he says, in the Shafi school, yukrahu al-qiyam lil-janaza. It is offensive to do that. Okay? إذ مرت به ولم يرد الذهاب معها كما صرح به في الروضة. Right? So he says, it is offensive to do that unless you stand up to go and follow it or to go ahead of it, but you don't just stand up for it. That's not something you do. That's offensive. قال في المجموع. Imam Nawawi says in the Majmu' قد ثبتت الأحاديث الصحيحة أنه أمر من مرت به بالقيام ومن تبعها بأن لا يقعد عند القبر حتى توضع. He says there are Sahih hadiths that indicate that the Prophet ﷺ told people to stand up when the janazah walked past and to not sit down until it was put down. ثم اختلف العلماء, and then the ulama, after the hadith being Sahih, they disagreed. فقال الشافعي والجمهور, Imam Shafi and the majority, they said هذان القيامان منسوخان. So standing up when it passes by and not sitting down until it's put down, these are abrogated. فلا يؤمر أحد منهما بالقيام. It's not commanded to do. وقال آخرون من أصحابنا, some of our Shafi scholars said يكره القيام إذا لم يرد المشي معها. They said it's offensive to stand up unless you want to go and follow it. قال المتولي of the أصحاب of the early Shafi scholars, he said يستحب لهما القيام. Whether you want to pass by or not, you should stand up. And then Imam Nawawi says والذي قاله المتولي هو المختار. Right? And what Mutawalli is saying is the correct position. فقد صحت الأحاديث بالأمر بالقيام, because there's Sahih hadith that tell us to stand up. ولم يثبت في القعود شيء, and there's nothing that has told us that we should not do that. إلا حديث علي, apart from the hadith of Sayyidina Ali that we just read in the Muwatta. Right? وليس صريحا في النسخ لاحتمال أن القعود فيه لبيان الجواز. And it's possible that Prophet ﷺ just stopped standing to say that it's permissible, right? So Imam Nawawi's personal position, following the certain proofs in his eyes, and that of Mutawalli, is you should stand up for the janazah. The position of the Shafi school is that you should not. Okay. Let's read one more hadith. Oh, let's do it. We'll just stop there. So Bab here. So I don't know what the Maliki school is or the Hanafi school. He mentions here, we adhere to this. We do not believe in standing for the funeral procession. This was a thing that was practiced and then abandoned. This is the position of Imam Muhammad and others. Inshallah, okay, we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.